His wife was 9 months pregnant and begging for mercy, but he pushed him outside the door in rain. "Leave," he shouted, holding another woman in his arms. What he didn't know was that the woman he threw away would one day own everything he ever dreamed of, and more. Nia stood in the middle of the living room, her trembling hands clutching her swollen belly. The man before her, Malik, the same man she once loved so deeply, the same man who once swore to protect her forever, now looked at her with nothing but disgust. "Get out," he said coldly, his voice slicing through her heart like a blade. "Malik, please," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Where will I go? The baby could come any moment." "Then let it come on the street," he interrupted. "I'm done taking care of a useless woman." Those words shattered Nia's last hope. The man who once called her his queen was now choosing another woman, slim, proud, and standing just behind him with a smirk of victory on her lips. Her name was Vanessa, Malik's new lover. Nia's knees weakened as Malik grabbed her suitcase and threw it at her feet. "You brought me nothing but debt and shame," he barked. "You couldn't even keep the shop running. You failed me, Nia. Vanessa's different, she knows how to make a man proud." For a moment, silence hung heavy. Even the rain outside seemed to hold its breath. Nia looked at Malik, her eyes swollen with disbelief. "After everything we built together? You're throwing me away like garbage." Malik's jaw tightened. "There's nothing left to build. You ruined it all." He opened the door and gestured for her to leave. The cold wind rushed in, carrying away the warmth of their home, and the last trace of love between them. Clutching her belly, Nia stepped out into the storm. The world blurred in her tears. Each drop that hit her face felt like the earth itself was crying for her. Behind her, Malik closed the door, not realizing that in that single moment, he had locked himself out of his own destiny. Hours later, under the faint glow of streetlights, Nia stumbled her way to a small clinic. The pain in her body was unbearable, contractions had begun. The nurses rushed her inside, helping her deliver a healthy baby boy. She named him Zion, because even in her ruins, she believed something divine still awaited her. As she held Zion close to her chest, she whispered, "One day, my son, the world will remember your mother's name." Her words carried no hatred, only quiet strength, a promise forged in heartbreak. Nia's days turned into nights, and nights into endless prayers. She found shelter at an old friend's house, Mama Kemi, a retired midwife who had known Nia's mother before she passed. The small house smelled of herbs and wood smoke, but it was warm, safe, and full of kindness. Mama Kemi would often tell her, "Child, a storm doesn't come to destroy you. Sometimes, it comes to wash away what was holding you back." But life wasn't easy. With a newborn to feed, Nia had to start from scratch. She found work at a local fabric stall in the open market, sorting cloths, cleaning, sometimes sewing small repairs for customers. Each morning, she would strap Zion to her back and walk miles through dust and heat. Her fingers blistered from the sewing needles, and yet, she smiled whenever Zion laughed. That laughter was her strength. Weeks became months. Slowly, Nia started saving small coins. Every naira she earned went into a small tin she kept hidden under her bed. She had one dream, to open her own small shop again. But fate wasn't done testing her. One afternoon, as she returned from the market, she saw Malik and Vanessa driving past in a new car. Their laughter echoed in her ears. Malik looked different, richer, colder, and proud. He didn't even glance her way. To him, she was invisible. That night, Nia cried quietly beside Zion's crib. "You may not see me now," she whispered, "but one day, you will." The next morning, she went to the market with new determination. She began offering sewing lessons to young girls in the area, charging a small fee. Slowly, her reputation grew. People admired her skill, her patience, her resilience. A few months later, one of her clients, a foreign designer named Mrs. Bennett, noticed her unique fabric patterns. "These are extraordinary," she said. "Have you ever thought of starting your own brand?" Nia laughed softly. "Me? A brand? I can barely afford rent." Mrs. Bennett smiled. "You have the gift, my dear. I'll help you get started." With Mrs. Bennett's support, Nia began sewing full-time. Her colorful African prints soon attracted attention from boutiques and online buyers. Within a year, she had her own small shop, Zion Designs, named after her son. And though the journey was still hard, something inside her had changed. She no longer waited for Malik to see her worth. She was now discovering it herself. The morning sun crept through the tiny window of Nia's rented room, painting her face in soft gold. Zion was still asleep, his tiny hand resting on her arm. For the first time in years, she woke up not with tears, but with purpose. Her small tailoring business had begun to bloom, slowly but surely. Word had spread in the neighborhood, that woman stitches with magic in her fingers. Customers came not only for her sewing but for her kindness, her humility, and her ability to make everyone feel seen. Every time she picked up her scissors or touched a piece of fabric, she poured her soul into it. The stitches weren't just threads, they were prayers, promises, and pieces of her heart woven together. One humid afternoon, while arranging fabrics at her market stall, a foreign woman stopped to admire her work. She was tall, elegant, and carried an aura of sophistication. "These designs," the woman said softly, touching the bold Ankara prints, "they're stunning. Who made them?" Nia straightened, nervous. "I did, ma'am." The woman smiled warmly. "You have an eye for beauty. I'm Mrs. Bennett, a designer visiting from the UK. You could do great things if you had the right platform." Nia's eyes widened. "I've always dreamed of it, but dreams don't buy fabric," she said with a shy laugh. Mrs. Bennett chuckled. "Maybe not, but determination does. I'll be in Lagos for a month. Bring your best work to my hotel tomorrow. Let me see what you can really do." That night, Nia didn't sleep. She stayed up sewing until dawn, crafting 3 new dresses by hand, each one inspired by a different chapter of her life. The first carried the deep red of heartbreak. The second, the golden hues of hope. The third, the royal blue of strength. When she arrived at Mrs. Bennett's hotel the next morning, her palms were sweaty, her heart pounding. She laid out the dresses, afraid they'd look too simple beside the polished fabrics foreign designers used. Mrs. Bennett walked around them slowly, her fingers tracing the patterns. She finally turned to Nia, eyes shining. "These aren't just dresses," she said. "They're stories. And stories, told right, are priceless." That single sentence became the seed that would change Nia's life forever. With Mrs. Bennett's mentorship, Nia learned not just how to design, but how to create a brand. She studied marketing, presentation, and design trends, balancing her lessons with motherhood and late-night sewing. Within 6 months, her small shop Zion Designs was flooded with local orders. Women from all walks of life came to her, brides, businesswomen, even celebrities. They all said the same thing: "There's something special in your clothes." And there was. Every piece carried the emotion of her journey, the courage to start again. Then came the moment that changed everything. One evening, Mrs. Bennett called her, excitement bursting through the phone. "Nia, the London Heritage Fashion Show is accepting designers from across the world this year. I want you to apply." "London?" Nia whispered, stunned. "Me? I've never even left Nigeria." Mrs. Bennett laughed. "Then it's time the world meets you." Nia worked for weeks preparing her collection. Her tiny apartment turned into a workshop, fabric everywhere, threads hanging like vines, Zion sketching beside her with crayons, pretending to be her assistant. When the acceptance letter arrived, she cried. "We're going to London, my boy," she whispered to Zion, hugging him tight. "We're flying higher than the pain that tried to break us." The night of the show was electric: lights, cameras, a runway that stretched like a dream. Models glided in Zion Designs, each dress flowing like poetry. The audience was spellbound by the richness of African prints mixed with modern grace. As the final model took her walk, Nia stood backstage, trembling. Then, thunderous applause erupted. Tears streamed down her face, every sound of clapping felt like a piece of her past being healed. After the show, 2 investors approached her. "Your story moved us," one said. "Your designs are the future. Let's build something together." Within months, Zion Designs opened its first international studio in Dubai. Success came like a sunrise, bright, warm, unstoppable. Fashion magazines across continents wrote about her. From poverty to power, the African queen behind Zion Designs. She was invited to galas, award shows, and conferences. Yet, through it all, Nia remained humble. She still sewed by hand at least once a week, a quiet reminder of where she began. Her company grew into an empire worth millions. Every design bore her signature butterfly logo, a symbol of transformation. And she didn't stop there. She started teaching, creating scholarships for young tailors, especially single mothers. Years passed, and one day, while working late in her glass-walled Dubai office, she saw a comment appear on her social media post. It was from Malik. "Proud of you, Nia. You always had the gift." For a moment, she froze. The name felt like a ghost from another life. Curiosity led her to his profile, and there it was, the face she once loved, now worn and tired. His business had failed, Vanessa had left, and the man who once mocked her poverty was now struggling to survive. Nia sat in silence for a while, then whispered, "Life has a funny way of stitching justice." But there was no hate in her voice, only calm. She closed the laptop, stood by the window overlooking the skyline, and smiled faintly. "I forgive you, Malik. Because I needed your rejection to find my reflection." That night, Nia tucked Zion into bed and whispered, "Always remember, my son, don't chase wealth. Chase purpose. Wealth will follow." He nodded sleepily. "Like you, Mama." She smiled. "Exactly like me." As the city lights shimmered outside, Nia looked out her window, not at the riches she'd earned, but at the peace she'd fought for. She had risen, not from luck, but from faith. Not from anger, but from grace. And in her heart, she knew. The woman they once threw away had become the queen no one could ever forget. The evening air in Lagos shimmered with excitement. Zion Designs was celebrating its 5th anniversary, a grand event at the luxurious Golden Pearl Hotel. Every corner glittered with elegance, crystal chandeliers, gold-trimmed walls, and a runway lined with photographers eager to capture Africa's most powerful woman in fashion, Nia Adesewa, now known globally as the Queen of African Couture. Nia stood at the top of the marble staircase, wearing a breathtaking gown of deep royal blue and gold embroidery. Cameras flashed, fans cheered, and guests whispered her name with awe. To the world, she was an icon, but in her heart, she remained the same woman who once stitched dresses under a flickering bulb, dreaming of something more. As she moved through the crowd, shaking hands and smiling for photos, her assistant whispered something that made her freeze. "Ma'am, there's a man outside asking to see you. He says, his name is Malik." For a split second, the air seemed to vanish. Her heart thudded, not with fear, but disbelief. "Malik?" she repeated quietly. The assistant nodded. "He looks desperate, ma'am." Nia hesitated. Then she drew a long breath and nodded. "Send him in." Moments later, the glass doors opened, and there he was. Malik stood awkwardly near the entrance, dressed in a faded suit that had clearly seen better days. The once confident man who had cast her aside was now thin, weary, and humbled by life. He stared at Nia, his lips parting slightly as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. "Nia, you," he stammered, "you look incredible." Her gaze was calm but sharp. "It's been a long time, Malik." "Yes," he said softly. "Too long." He looked around the grand hall, the luxury, the guests, the press, the flashing lights, all of it built by the woman he had once told was nothing. "I didn't know who you really were," Malik began, his voice shaking. "I didn't know you'd become this." Nia smiled faintly, though her eyes held no warmth. "You didn't need to know, Malik. You just needed to believe in me, but you chose to throw me away." He lowered his gaze. "I was foolish. I thought love was measured by money, by appearances. Vanessa left me. Took everything. I lost my business, my home, my pride." He looked up again, his voice cracking. "But seeing you now, Nia, I just wanted to say I'm sorry." The room around them fell silent as if the universe itself paused to listen. Nia stepped closer, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. "You're sorry," she repeated, her voice steady but laced with quiet power. "Do you know what your sorry cost me, Malik? Nights of hunger. Tears I couldn't stop. Raising our son alone, while you lived your new life." Malik swallowed hard, his eyes glistening. "I know. And I can't take it back. I want to see my son. Please." At that, Nia's expression softened, slightly. She gestured to the far end of the room where Zion, now a confident young boy of 6, stood talking to Mrs. Bennet. His little suit mirrored Malik's old style, confident but innocent. "That's him," Nia said quietly. "Zion. He knows who his father is, and he also knows who his mother had to become." Malik's eyes filled with tears as he looked at the boy. "He's beautiful," he whispered. Nia nodded. "Yes, he is." There was a long silence between them, the kind that carried both regret and closure. Finally, Nia turned back to Malik. You see, Malik, life has a way of teaching us. You chased gold and lost your soul. I chased peace, and found everything. Malik's lips trembled. Nia, is there any way we could? No, she interrupted gently. There's no going back. But you can learn. And maybe, find your own redemption. She extended her hand, not out of love, but forgiveness. Malik took it, tears rolling down his cheeks. You taught me the value of worth, she said softly. Not yours, mine. As Malik turned to leave, the crowd erupted into applause for Nia's speech on resilience, unaware that she had just closed a chapter that once broke her. She walked back into the light, smiling for the cameras, not because she had won against Malik, but because she had won herself back. And this time, the crown she wore was not made of gold, but of grace. The night of the anniversary ended with soft music and golden lights reflecting off the marble floors. As the guests departed, Nia walked out to the terrace, the city of Lagos glittering beneath her like a sea of stars. Zion ran up to her, his small hands gripping the edge of her gown. Mama, everyone said you're famous, he said proudly. Are you really the queen they talk about? Nia knelt down, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. I'm not a queen because I'm rich, my son, she said gently. I'm a queen because I never gave up. Remember that, power is nothing without purpose. Zion smiled, and Nia's heart swelled with peace. For years, she had fought battles no one saw, sleepless nights, hunger, rejection, but every scar now felt like a medal. She looked up at the sky and whispered, Mama Kemi, Mrs. Bennett, everyone who believed in me, thank you. A soft breeze brushed her face, almost as if the universe itself answered. Weeks later, Nia launched a new foundation, Queens of Tomorrow, dedicated to helping single mothers across Africa start their own businesses. Cameras flashed as she cut the ribbon, journalists shouting her name. But she wasn't thinking about fame, she was thinking about every woman who had once stood where she stood, broken, lost, but not defeated. In her speech, Nia said, no woman should ever be defined by who leaves her. You are not a mistake. You are a miracle in progress. When life closes a door, build your own house, and fill it with light. The crowd roared with applause. Some cried. Others simply smiled through their tears. Among them, Malik stood silently at the back, watching. For the first time, he didn't feel jealousy, only admiration. He realized that losing Nia was the lesson his soul had needed. He bowed his head and walked away quietly, letting her shine without the shadow of his past. That night, Nia tucked Zion into bed. Mama, he said sleepily, when I grow up, I'll build even bigger things than you. She laughed softly. Good. Just don't forget to build with love. As the lights dimmed, she stood by the window, a silhouette of triumph, forgiveness, and peace. She had once been thrown into the storm, but instead of drowning, she learned to dance in the rain. Life will test you, but remember, every pain carries a purpose. Nia's story isn't just fiction, it's a mirror for every heart that's been broken and rebuilt stronger. If her journey touched your soul, don't leave without spreading that light. Sparkling Heart. Subscribe to African Heart Tales for more stories of strength, betrayal, and redemption, where every heartbreak becomes a crown.